The explosion of the grenade going off sent dust and debris flying everywhere, but we were all safe.
Woo! Yeah.
Nova, Malcolm called out as he bounced on his feet. He had already thrown a half-dozen grenades, but still cheered every time. The others had even started to get into it too. Hiromi actually had a really good throw once she got a little practice. Turned out her chrome hands had been to blame as it messed with her throw. Something she hadn't even known until now. Ichi had finally gotten comfortable, and the two boys were seeing who could throw the farthest. It was nice that everything was coming together. Motoko. We got company. Ichi called out, and I looked over and frowned. We were pretty far out in the middle of nowhere. Specifically because we were throwing grenades around. We had even driven off the main highway into the desert to do our training. And now a few cars spewing dust up behind them were driving towards us. Ichi. Get in your van and hide out. Malcolm. You have your weapons?
Yeah.
Load up. Hiromi, get in the Quadra. I ordered as I hurried to the Quadra's trunk. I wasn't exactly armored up at the moment, but I grabbed my copperhead and a spare magazine in one hand, and my own Shingen in the other, which I quickly passed over to Hiromi. She nodded, holstering her own pistol and grabbing the smart SMG as she hunkered down in the armored vehicle. I noticed with a bit of amusement she was still gripping a grenade in her offhand. Then I turned to the approaching cars, which as they approached I noticed were in fact wraith markings covering them. Well, this just got more interesting, and a lot more dangerous. I walked a bit away from the Quadra and let myself go casual. Hiromi was hidden in the Quadra. Ichi had his HMGs ready to go, and Malcolm? Malcolm was being smart. He was hiding. I was actually really impressed for a moment, as he had hunkered down under the truck, using brush to break up his outline. Shingen poking out and just waiting. The two wraith vehicles pulled up in a sliding skid, sending dirt and gravel flying, and then a moment later out stepped four gonks. Two from each vehicle. I quickly scanned all four as the dust cleared. Each of them was armed, and swaggered out, only hesitating a tiny amount when they saw my copperhead. One of them nudged the other and pointed me out, pointing out that I was armed. Drop the gun, kid. The apparent leader called out, waving around an axe. Something I noticed he had experience handling. Like most of the wraiths, these guys were a small step above the normal Night City gangs. Better weapons, usually some military training. So I dropped the copperhead. I didn't need it, and it would make them let down their guard a bit. Satisfied? Now what do you want? Yeah, I am. You're out here using up our turf, fucking around on wraith territory. I know you Night City kids don't think much of us nomads, but out here? Well, this isn't Night City. This is our home, and now you owe us a nice juicy tax. The man said, but to my surprise he wasn't talking about Eddie's preem ride. Where'd you get her? My eyes narrowed and my hackles rose up. Because he was looking squarely at my Quadra. It's a bit of a long story, and if I tell you, I'll have to kill you. I answered back, sounding like I was joking. I wasn't joking. Ha. Nice one, kid, but those are nomad wheels, and you don't look like any nomad I know of. You clan? No. Night City brat through and through. I admitted with a laugh. Even more interesting, but I think that'll do. Just hand over the wheels, and you lot can go home, and tell everyone about the big scary wraiths. It'll be a fun story to tell your chums. He demanded, his focus on me shifting as he looked away. His three other buddies were split, looking at me, or at Ichi in the cab of the truck who had been hiding. Making enough noise and moving around that they knew he was there. I wonder if Malcolm had asked him to do that. Since everyone was in position and these gonks thought they had won, it was time to act. The leader had his back turned, and none of them had visible speedwear. So I quick drew the boya and punched a hole through the leader. 750 XP gained. I must have it something serious, because I got the XP alert instantly. Fuck, I was already moving, leaping up and over the Quadra, drawing the idiot's attention to me, and away from the truck. The truck that even as I started taking some fire, suddenly opened up. The idiots didn't even hear it, too focused on me, and then the noise of their rifles was drowned out. The roar of the HMGs firing in unison echoed out, despite the fact they weren't super accurate, Rate of fire had a charm of its own. The three gonks, despite moving a bit into cover to surround the quadra, were soon mulched without me even needing to do more than take cover. Malcolm was firing as well, so even as they tried to slip into new cover, the smart rounds pelted down onto them. Then everything went quiet. Kill check. I called out as I stepped out from around the quadra to quickly look over the four bodies. I popped bullets into the three extras just to be sure, but they were dead. Everyone all right? I called out, and Malcolm and Itchy both confirmed they were okay. Malcolm took a moment longer to slide out from under the truck. But as I walked over to the quadra, Hiromi still hadn't spoken up. I hurried to the car and popped it open only to relax. Hiromi was shaking a bit, and looking. She wiped at her eyes, but she was okay. I leaned in and pulled her into a hug. It's okay. I'm just glad you're okay. Everything's fine. It's stupid. They weren't even shooting at me. She whispered back, and I just hugged her tighter. For a while, until she eventually calmed down and nodded quietly, pushing me away and stepping out. You okay? Ichi asked Hiromi gently, and she nodded. I'll be fine. Uck. Look at this mess, she said instead, staring at the corpses. Well, I mean, I trailed off looking at the Wraith vehicles. Considering how many of them we had already sold off, these probably wouldn't net us much. Who wants to throw grenades at the cars until they explode? Oh. Me. Malcolm called out, jumping up and down like a little kid, and even Itchy snuffed out a laugh before raising his own hand. Oh fine. Hiromi added herself, stomping over to grab some grenades. Okay, first let's check them for loot, then let's turn this into good practice. Try to aim into the cabin. I called out as my chums all grabbed high explosives. This was such a good day. I flopped onto the couch beside June when I got home that evening. We had used up all the grenades I had crafted, turning the Wraith vehicles into hunks of scrap. Fuck the Wraiths. Welcome home. You've been out in the Badlands? June asked. I looked up and he was looking me over. Huh? Did he scan me? Gonk. You don't have to scan me, you can just ask where I've been. I didn't. I just noticed all the dust on you. He answered back, trying to sound cool, but I was barely dusty anymore. So I just kept staring at him until he got awkward. Okay, I did a small scan. Poonk. But yeah, Section 9 didn't know how to use grenades, so I made a whole bunch of them, and we went out into the desert and blew shit up. It was kinda nova. You could have invited me. June, I love you, but inviting my brother along with my chums is weird. Then because I really didn't care about being weird. Well, mostly. Sometimes. I shook my head. You can come next time. June smiled at my offer and reached over, dropping a hand into my hair. Next time then. What are your plans for the rest of the night? He asked, and in return I smiled and adjusted myself so I was laying sideways on the couch. Well, first, I'm going to veg out on the couch with my gonk brother and watch his crappy TV shows. Then I'll probably do some more work on my drone. Hey. Well, this gonk brother knows there is going to be a new show starting tonight. Yeah? Yeah, it's about a drug dealer in Bleg. I answered instantly. That sounds like total scop. I don't want to watch that. I grumbled, but June was by now well used to ignoring my complaints about any and all TV shows in the future. He just continued to ramble on about what he had heard about this new show. I ended up watching the first episode. I wanted to kill the director. The Tashikoma chassis was done. I had finished every piece, and put it all together, even uploaded the very basic program into its little brain. The moment it was finished, I got a burst of alerts. Programming. Engineering. Technical ability. The system lagged when I finished a big project. Then I set the tiny drone onto its forelimbs and flipped it on. It ran through its check process. Its eye rolling around as it checked the rotation. Limbs one at a time stretching and moving, gathering range of motion data. Then it was off. Taking a wavering slow step forward, then another leg moved, and another, and soon, despite how unsteady it was, the program I had created was learning, and it walked, and walked, and touched the wall. Then it just kept trying to walk forward. I waited a minute, hopeful the program would figure out something was in the way. But no. Okay. That needs to be fixed. I reached down and picked it up, and despite being lifted it still just tried to walk forward. I grabbed my personal link and plugged it in. Yep, it had gotten stuck on the basic walking program I had made. It hadn't actually switched over to the learning process. Oh. It wasn't a programming fault. It was hardware. Fucker sold me an off-brand CPU. I grumbled. It literally wasn't strong enough to run both sides of the program, which meant I needed to buy a new one, or get creative. I sighed as I grabbed a personal link cord and my laptop. Time to offload some of that thinking little Tashikoma. While I watched the Tashikoma slowly walk in circles hampered by a length of cord, I at least was happy enough. It was definitely learning now. The laptop was basically running the learning part of the program, and the chassis was running the actual movement. It was a bit of a gonk setup, but at least it was improving, slowly becoming more and more capable of taking the steps with surety. The learning program was just something I had nabbed out of a SCSM. Basically the same thing that would have likely evolved into the program Brendan used to learn about people. Well, with a few years of advancement. It wasn't anywhere near an actual AI, of course. We were talking low-level iterative learning. Half the time I had to plug into the laptop and make the adjustment manually before the Tashikoma would actually learn it. But that's okay. It wasn't about what it could do now. It was just the first step. Tashikoma v0.00001. Okay, while you keep figuring out walking, I'm going to go make more grenades. I reached down and patted the Tashikoma on its head. Ganbat Tashikoma-chan. Satisfied I had cheered on my little bot, I headed out. I would need to stop at the store for more parts though. Thankfully the new printer was hammering out the grenade casings I would need. The sun came up long before I took another break. The Netrunner lair was now stocked up on a good amount of grenades. I pushed the second box full of them under the table and out of the way. But I was all smiles despite the long session. 100 technical ability XP gained. Technical ability leveled up. That was Tech 7. And since it had upgraded, I was finding myself excited to do even more builds. Mostly because despite getting one crafting alert after leveling, the grenade grind was nearing its limits. I needed to make something new. Well, my first idea was to go sideways more than anything. Right now all I was doing was making frag grenades, but grenades in Night City were crazy. Laser grenades, poison grenades, all sorts of different stuff. And EMP grenades could be super useful against Borgs. Unfortunately I didn't actually have the blueprints for them, and I wasn't going to try and make explosives, especially an EMP in my Netrunner cave. So that meant it was time to go on the net. I stretched and wandered over to my net chair. I needed some data, so of course I was going to steal it. Plugging in, I shivered a bit, as the coolant started flowing through my leotard, but then I paused. I should be smart about this. Yeah. Smart. I could do that. Ringing. Moshiko? Hey Malcolm, you doing anything right now? No? Preem. Hiromi is at school, so I had to call someone. Want to help me with some net running? I can't promise it'll be exciting, but I'm going to steal some weapon blueprints, so I... Stop talking. You had me at stealing your net running lair. Yeah. I'm already here. Alright, on my way. Okay, so what do I do? Malcolm asked as he arrived, and I just pointed him at the laptop station that my chums had used to monitor the videos while we hunted people down. Really simple. Mostly just take data that I sent to the server. Make sure it has what we need, and if I start flatlining, save my butt. Right. Sure, how do I do that? Well, mostly unplug me and call for Vic. Preem. That I can do. Alright, I'm diving. Thanks Malcolm, I know this might be kinda boring, but I appreciate having someone to watch my back. Hey, that's what Section 9 is all about, he said, and I flashed him a massive smile. They were calling themselves Section 9 now. I quickly flopped back, shivered as the coolant once more started up, and then blinked. I was no longer in the basement. No, I was in my private lobby. A classy Tron-like meeting room. I love this place. It's kinda cool, I guess. Malcolm replied, and I laughed, having not expected him to hear me. You going to watch over my shoulder? I figure I might as well. That okay? Sure, enjoy the sights of the net. It doesn't look all that. Whoa! I had opened the wall of my lobby, revealing the actual net space. The digital city of moving lights and data streams, and Malcolm was basically seeing what I was seeing, if not in great quality. I'll probably not keep the camera going once things get started, Malcolm. I'll need the bandwidth. Oh sure. Don't let me hold you back. Nah, Chum. You are definitely pushing me forward. Alright, let's go. I jumped, disappearing into a search engine as I went looking for what I needed. Thankfully it wasn't exactly like I was trying to steal military secrets. So I slipped into the search engine and found exactly what I wanted. A weapon store that sold the grenades that I wanted. It was a Gunnerama. I came up to their website and entered. The digital interface skizzed out and I rolled my eyes at the terrible web maintenance, as I walked into basically a white room with a menu screen. Whoever ran this place definitely didn't have a netrunner on tap. I bypassed the shitty website and walked right behind it to the sealed door. 10 seconds of breaching, and the door opened, and I was into their system. The back end of the shop made me still instantly. It was an actual net space. I was wrong. This place did have a netrunner on retainer, they just didn't actually jazz up the front end. There were defenses all over, demons awake and active. The room reminded me of some level out of Doom. Grey concrete stone, and a single door to continue on the other end of the room. Worse, most of the demons were off-the-shelf defenses, but not all of them. I looked across and grimaced at the 2 turrets that were already unfolding from their defenses. Some kind of protected demon? They didn't have my stealth demons attached to them. They had seen me. I'd have to examine those to figure out how they had bypassed my own hack after this. I instantly raised a barrier as the system came to life. The 2 turrets alerting the horde to my presence. A few random bits of code slammed into the barrier and slowed to a crawl. The attacks from the blinded demons weren't entirely focused. Shooting in my general area thankfully, but that would go away once they got a lock. I would have to act fast. Hellfire was activated and I lashed it out, focusing on the most dangerous demons. A set of guards that looked like men in trench coats. Their guns raised and lashing out with purple beams of coded death. The fire hit the first one, and instantly it started melting, its code turning into spaghetti. 250 XP gained. Of course my own assault had broken the stealth effect of my demons. The facehuggers basically stopped working as I attacked. Something else I should probably have learned before this. But my own lack of net running experience was biting me. All the demons focused on me, and the wriggling blinding demons all turned into particles. Their ability to hamper my enemies gone. Dropping connection for a minute Malcolm. I called as I cut his video monitor. I needed all the bandwidth I could get. Instantly I got a small boost in speed, and used it. I activated my ice shield to create a wall of scrap data that the demons were forced to chew through, giving me some protection from the purple beams of death, small imp demons throwing digital fireballs, and the 2 automated turrets. I've never seen turret demons like that before, but I realized just how dangerous they were when they started firing. They shot the same weapons as the guard demons, but in rapid fire. I did a quick scan, and realized the hack they were sending out was a really nasty short circuit, trying to fry me right out of their system. I threw up more ice shield and moved, hiding behind the wall of ice that was quickly disintegrating despite my new additions, and fired another, Hellfire, at the guards. 250 XP gained. Then another, turning the main guards into puddles of dead code. But this system seriously had a lot of defense demons. Whoever set this up was a fucking maniac about their private information. Imp fireballs started getting closer and closer, but the turrets were the biggest threat. I threw up another barrier and winced, hearing the warning from my system about my body heating up as I was burning through programs, but I didn't have any other choice, unless I wanted to just run away. Hellfire was activated again, and this time I was able to aim towards one of the turrets, watching it melt down. 250 XP gained. With only one more turret, despite the imps moving in, I had more breathing room, and was able to rebuild my defenses for a few moments, throwing out more ice walls and barriers to fortify up. Despite the turret still chewing through with its constant attacks, wincing at the way even through cyberspace I could feel my body heating up. Once I was more secure, I took a bit of time to try and cool off, before sending out another hellfire was activated again and again, as soon as I could without frying myself, as I burned first the turret, and then through the horde of imps. 250 XP gained. 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 Finally the room was quiet, and I took a deep breath despite being a digital avatar at the moment. That was a lot. I reconnected my audio and visual link with Malcolm once I was sure it was over. Malcolm, you there? Motoko. You okay? I'm fine, Malcolm, just some unexpected defenses. I guess I should have known a gun shop wouldn't ignore their net defenses as well. I'm moving in now. Then I did just that, first stopping at the turrets to examine what was left of their code. I couldn't find anything that would give them a defense against my stealth demons, until I looked up and noticed there was actually a defensive system around their cubby. A few minutes of examining it and it made sense. The turrets had their own barriers around them that turned off once they started attacking. It was actually brilliant, as they were protected right until they noticed someone. Sure, with this knowledge I could probably make some adjustments and double-check for such a thing in the future, but to see something new like this? Fascinating. Motoko? It's nothing, Malcolm, just some cool Netrunner stuff. I'm heading in now. I took a long moment to examine the door that led further inside and even sent a breach access into the door, just to make sure it wasn't trapped. After confirming it was clean, I opened the door and stepped through. It was a room. Just a server room really. Files stored in digital file drawers that would be folders on normal computers. I accessed the room's functions after making sure there were no defenses in here, and did a search for grenade information. A few minutes later I found the file I wanted. Blueprints to create an EMP grenade that the shop sold. At least it would be better than the junk I had messed around with so long ago. Better than just a battery overloading. I looked around and did a few more quick searches, gathering up more details on other grenade types, and some data on silencers, just in case I could learn something new. Then I pulled out, making sure to cover my tracks, and running the hell away before whoever owned the shop figured out they had a digital break-in. Bleg. I groaned as I pulled free. I was mostly okay at this point, but my brain still felt hot from all the hacks I had pushed through my deck. You okay? Yeah. Just a headache. I grumbled, as I pulled out a Mac stock and huffed it down. Instantly the pain faded, and I unplugged from the Netrunner chair and stretched as I wandered over to the small sink in the basement. A few seconds of washing my face, and pouring cold water over my neck, I felt much better. So that was kinda scary, Malcolm offered, and I nodded. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that sort of defense. I mean, most shops I breach into don't have much security. Then again, I don't think I've tried to hack a gun shop before. It was usually food stands, or hotels. You handled it though? Yeah. I could have just disconnected from the server as well. The system couldn't lock me in. I threw him a thumbs up. But more importantly, you got the data upload right? Yep. Right here. He ran back to the laptop and flipped it around, showing the blueprint of an EMP grenade. Looks complicated. Mostly I just need to know how they make it. Once I know the parts they are using, I can either copy it, or make adjustments to make it cheaper. Or stronger. I answered. But really, Malcolm, thanks. I appreciate the backup. Hey, no worries. Honestly, I'm glad I was here to help, especially if you are in the net doing stuff that crazy. Yeah, the net is certainly a world of its own. I treated Malcolm to lunch, and he ended up actually following me around to all the shops I had to hit to gather the parts for all the different grenades I was going to make. Slamming all the bags onto the workbench in the basement, Malcolm was carrying bags as well, helping me save a trip all the way to the car park. He grunted as he dropped the bags, sighing and rubbing his arms. You really need all this? Not really, But I want to make a few laser grenades because that's just cool, I answered, and Malcolm did sort of shrug and nod together at that. True. And those things are kinda complicated. EMP stuff is pretty cheap, and that's what I have here. Preem. So are you going to make them now? Yeah, I can do that. Want to watch? Yeah. He offered, and I smiled as I ran over to the CAD program. First I needed to make my own design since I wasn't using the weapons shop's exact design for the grenades. I pulled up the design of my frag grenade that I used to print the casings in the printer, and started making adjustments. 100 engineering XP gained. I smiled at that as I almost instantly got the alert and slammed through it. The changes were only minor really, a few additional holes cut into the casing to fit the battery that would be the source of the EMP. Finished with the file, I uploaded it and sent it to the printer, then grabbing an old casing I plopped it into the 3D printer and in 10 minutes cut out the sections I would need. Here Malcolm, something you can do to help. See all these casings? When one is finished, just put it into the machine to keep making more. I'm aiming for at least a dozen of these. The boy looked over the printer and nodded instantly. That I can do. With that I set to work. Malcolm was a big help in running around to grab things for me, as I took the blueprints I had learned from the weapon shop, and made a few minor adjustments for my own style, and then slowly put together an EMP grenade. I was extremely careful when I finally placed the battery into the casing. Almost nervous as I purposefully rolled my chair to the far side of the basement as far from the server and net running stuff as I could before finally sealing it all together. 100 crafting XP gained. Done? Yeah. First one anyways. Want to go test it? Hell yes. We left the rest of the stuff there as we hurried out of the basement. I couldn't exactly throw it around in the middle of the street, and while I was confident in the range of the EMP effect only being a couple of feet, I didn't exactly want to be wrong, so we once more drove mostly out of the city until we started seeing dirt lots and open spaces. Then I just pulled into a dirt lot, ignoring whoever owned it, as Malcolm and I stepped out of the quadra. Okay Malcolm? Want to do the honors? Hell yeah. Just pop and throw? Just like the frags, yeah. Same timer and everything. He popped the clip holding the timer locked, twisted the timer and chucked the grenade, sending it arcing away. We waited for a few seconds once it bounced, and then a few seconds more. Then suddenly it burst into a visible wave of light and a spark of electricity, and I even got a second of fuzz in my Kiroshi, although we were far enough it didn't do anything more. Whoa! Malcolm offered, and I nodded, smiling. That is Nova. I screamed into the air, arms upraised. Totally Nova. Malcolm and I high-fived, and then we hurried back to the quadra. I still think it was a good show. Malcolm offered. He had decided to hang out with me despite the fact I was just working on making more and more grenades, and the distraction was actually kind of appreciated. Except his taste in TV shows was as bad as my brother's. What's in Hall was literally one of the worst things I've ever seen. And I saw Bushido 5. Bushido 5 is the best one. I looked away from the grenade I was fitting together to give him a look of disgust. They had a train-top Kusanagi sword battle before the whole train exploded for no reason. The minion's Kusanagi landed under the train and it exploded. Nothing explodes like that. It blew up the entire train. I know it was so preem. Then, if that wasn't stupid enough, the explosion launched the hero into the air and he landed his Kusanagi into the bad guy's AV. It was such a preem scene. They didn't use stunt doubles or anything for that. It was all practical effects. Malcolm the First literally saw some of those minions get stuck under the train. Yeah, the stunt guys all have Gemini and super hardened brain cases. They get torn apart all the time. God, that sounds horrible. I shook my head as I went back to finishing the grenade. How many of those you going to make? I honestly was just thinking of making as many as I can until I ran out of parts. I bought 30 batteries. Malcolm nodded wisely and then threw up a thumbs up, which I instantly returned. Malcolm got it. 100 engineering XP gained. Engineering skill level up. I looked up from the CAD software. I had been working on designing the laser grenade, and it was honestly a lot more complicated, since I needed to have the laser emitters cut through the grenade casing. Well, and it was a much chunkier grenade, since the power source and all the emitters took up space. But I was making great progress, and now I had a level up from it. Engineering 6. I leaned back away from the computer and stretched. Malcolm and I had hung out all day making grenades and talking about movies or other stuff. He had even asked me about Chrome, what I had planned, and what he should get. It was fun. But eventually he had decided to head home to check in with his folks, leaving me time to design more grenades. But maybe it was time for a break. I got up and headed to the elevator, and then out of the SLS apartments. Just as I was walking out, though, I ran into a familiar face. Knox? Motoko. Hey. The Mox boy had some changes since I last saw him. For one, he had gotten a set of tech hair which now was split in half, with Mox colors. Nice chrome. Just the tech hair? I asked, and his face burst into a smile. No, I got a few other things as well. Some Prime optics for one. Helps me keep track of customers and stuff, he said, flashing his eyes through a few different settings. Mostly just making them brighter. Prime tune. How's business? Not a lot of new content, he said, teasing me lightly, and I just shrugged. Yeah. Most of the recent stuff is no good. Too much chance of pissing off core or big groups. I'll try to get something that's workable to Judy soon. Hey, whatever you can bring in will be good, I'm sure, he offered, and I shrugged. I hadn't really thought about it in a while. The BD stuff was still mostly just something for fun. I'll have to reach out to Wakako and see if she has any gigs. I did a short one of me clipping a car, but nothing really happened, so I never bothered to give it to Judy. Hey, there is one thing we could use some help with, he suddenly asked, and I blinked. What's up? So Hiromi's got the SLS working guard duty, right? Well, there's been some trouble recently. One of the sellers and his guards were beaten and everything was taken. Didn't think much of it at first, but then it happened again. Wait. The girls already brought this up. I told them to bug Hiromi. Yeah, same situation, but this just happened. She hasn't done anything yet, but the guys I have selling are getting antsy, and SLS aren't doing much better. When was the last attack? Yesterday, he said, and I frowned at that. I'll talk to Hiromi about it. Let me know if anything new happens as well. That's not okay. Thanks, Motoko. I knew you'd want to get involved as soon as you heard, he said, and I realized he had purposefully been out here waiting for me. You wanted to go around Hiromi with this? Why? I asked suddenly, and he jumped at my words before relaxing. Honestly? She doesn't care enough about my chums that are getting beaten. You're a street kid though. You'd understand. I really didn't understand, but I sighed regardless. I'll talk to Hiromi again. Talk to you later, Knox. See you around, Motoko. This was not the problem I wanted to deal with right now. It's not like that at all. Knox, you fucking shit. I'm gonna fine you so hard for this shit. Hiromi ranted a bit after I called her wanting to meet up. I was at her apartment after school, and she wasn't happy. This is the same problem as before. If it was still going on, why not have me help? I asked, more curious than anything. I was trying to get more info. I have some feelers out to try and find out what is going on. I'm not even sure they are being honest. The 3 that have been stolen from were all the lowest sellers. I had already spoken to Knox about how we might cut them loose if they couldn't sell anymore just before this happened. Hiromi. I groaned, rubbing my face. Just assume this actually happened. What would you do? Hiromi looked a little uncomfortable for a moment. Probably call you in Section 9 for a gig to hunt down whoever is attacking my workers. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. Call in everyone. Malcolm and I were hanging out most of the day, so he should be just home with his parents. But this is a gig. Wait, you and Malcolm were hanging out all day? Yeah. I needed someone to help watch my back while I did a net dive. Then when I was making more grenades, we just hung out and talked. It was fun. Hiromi's face went through a wild array of emotions before she went blank. I'm glad you had a fun day. Thanks, Hiromi. Sorry you were stuck in class all day. Will your parents let you leave to do Section 9 stuff right now? I know you can't always get away on school days.
Oh, it's fine.
After the Badlands gig, my parents gave me a blanket exemption from most of the rules as long as it's work-related.
I just really can't abuse it, or else.
Nova. I cheered, smiling.
That's really cool. They must really trust you now.
Uck. Mom is acting super proud and stuff. She even told her co-workers about me, to sort of make fun of their kids who are all idiots.
I just snorted and nudged Hiromi. Well, let's get to work then.
She nodded and her eyes went yellow as she started making calls. An hour later everyone arrived at my Netrunner lair.
So that's the situation. We are going to find out who is attacking Hiromi's business and kick some teeth in, I explained. But Malcolm shook his head right away.
Motoko. If the sellers are the ones being jumped like this,
they are probably moving in on someone else's turf.
Hiromi isn't the only one selling BDs after all.
I know that.
Hiromi snapped, but I put a hand on her shoulder.
Hiromi, Malcolm wasn't being mean, just explaining something he noticed.
Right? I turned to him and he nodded.
Yeah.
It's preem that you put together a BD business, Romy.
You're our corpo, I wouldn't shit-talk you. He added, and Hiromi perked up a bit. Right.
Sorry.
I
feel stupid for ignoring this.
It's fine.
We are here to handle it now. Malcolm, Ichi, you both have a better feel for the city than us. Do you know of any groups that sell BDs in the area that might be causing us problems?
Charter Hill?
Difficult to say. No one technically owns the territory. So it could be any minor gang. Or one of the big ones, but honestly,
if it was 6th Street, they would have told the kids to fuck off. Then they would have beaten them.
Malcolm said, and Ichi nodded. And if it was the TC, we wouldn't be talking, because the poor Gongti be dead. Ichi added. Most TC bosses don't appreciate someone moving in on their income.
Okay, so in that case,
we do it the old-fashioned way,
I muttered, looking at the net-running chair. Yes. Awesome.
I'll go on a snack run. Just the usual stuff, Malcolm. Hiromi? Ichi asked as he rose up, and I was left as the only one in the room annoyed at the situation. This is what I get for being skilled at things, huh? I sighed and headed over to the chair to get plugged in.